Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for iOS today is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. Meg is not here, but Jason Snell is. He's a professional writer. He's going to show us professional writing tools for iOS.
And the iOS 10 public beta is here too, but should you install it?
And I'm going to catch them all. It's time for iOS Today. iOS Today is brought to you by Audible.com. To download the free audiobook of your choice, go to audible.com/iOS Today. And by Texture, the mobile app that lets you access the world's most popular magazines anytime, anywhere, using your phone or tablet. For your free trial, visit texture.com/twit. And by Wealthfront. Wealthfront is a low-cost, automated investment service and the most sophisticated way to invest your money. Whether you've got millions or you're just starting out, visit wealthfront.com/iOS today and sign up to get your free personalized investment portfolio. That's wealthfront.com/iOS today. iOS Today time. Hello, Jason Snell. Good
Hello,
to see you.
Leo.
Sixcolors.com.
It's good to be here.
And you're not going to... There, thank you. Look at that. I touched it. It came out.
Amazing. Touchscreen power right there. Only on iOS Today.
Megan is in Cancun, right? She's in Mexico.
I just see the beach pictures.
Beach pictures,
Looks pretty
tanned.
Good. Yeah.
And you know, she's very frustrated because you cannot download Pokemon Go in Mexico. She has 3 kids down there. All of them going, Mommy, 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 I want to play Pokemon Go. Jason and I are Pokemon Go players. We'll have a little tutorial in that. But one of the things I like to do with the good fortune of having Jason Snell here is talk about tools that you use. And we've done that in the past. But you've got some new stuff that writers are going to be very interested in.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's doing writing, whether you're a professional writer or you're just, writing on your blog, or you need to use your iPad or your iPhone to jot down some thoughts and send them later, there are a lot of great iOS writing tools. So.
But so you write a lot of words a day, I'm sure, right? This is like your business.
Sure. I mean, between that and the podcasting, so I talk a few thousand words a day, and then I write a lot of them too. Yeah. And I use my iPad a lot
That's my
more
question.
than I used
You're
to,
using your iPad Pro for a lot of that?
I am absolutely.
Not a laptop.
A lot less. I used to use my MacBook Air to do most of that, and now I mostly use the iPad Pro to do it.
You're using which keyboard? Because you have choices.
Well, right now I've got the smart cover, but generally I'm using an external Bluetooth keyboard like the Apple Magic Keyboard.
And then a stand or something?
Yeah. I've got a couple different stands. I've got a wood stand for when I'm sort of at home. I've got a little folding stand for when I'm out.
I'm really glad, actually, because I've been meaning to ask. So when you use a stand, do you elevate the iPad Pro so it's more like a computer screen? Because if you look at how he's got it set up with the Apple Smart Keyboard, it's kind of low. You're looking down. I guess it's not much different than a laptop. No, but it's a big enough screen that if you elevated it, you could be looking straight across at it.
I know people who've done that, and if I can set it up that way, that's the nice thing about it using a Bluetooth keyboard, is if I've got 2 levels, I can set the screen up high and then keep the keyboard down low. But most of the time, it's more like using a laptop, where you're on one plane, and it's probably a little too high for your hands, or it's a little too low for your eyes, or both.
See, the ergonomics are not ideal. No. The hands are maybe okay, but then as you say, your eyes are not, because now your chin is down and your neck is strained, and so it's not ideal. On the other hand, it's also a touch device, and probably having it out there is not ideal for touch. So this is one of the things about the iPad Pro. There's no magic place for it to be.
Yeah, it's tricky, although iOS 9 added a bunch of features, and there are a few new ones in iOS 10 too. But iOS 9 added a bunch of features that make it a lot easier to use an external keyboard. The app switcher is built in now. If you use Spotlight, you can use the arrow keys to navigate around.
So you don't have to take your hands off the keys.
Exactly right, because that was always the worst thing about it, is that you were navigating everything with your finger. You get the zombie arms. You're like, right? And you don't want to do that. You want to keep your hands down on the keyboard.
Well, in fact, isn't that what Apple says? We're never going to make a touchscreen laptop because that's a touchscreen laptop.
Yeah, but that's the argument, is that if you have to rely on touch and take your hands off the keyboard, it's not any fun. So that they're making some progress there.
So day in, day out, do you use Pages? What do you use to write?
A couple of apps. OneWriter is a pretty nice app that I use to write. Yeah, sure. So OneWriter, here it is. That's actually my hands-on with Sierra story.
Are you writing in HTML?
This is Markdown. So I've got some HTML in there for like my screenshot, but I'm using John Gruber's Markdown language, so I can put in hyperlinks and subheads and things like that.
Markdown is a highly simplified markup language. It's more like human readable markup language. And there's the preview.
Right. So it's got a Markdown preview, so it will pick up the HTML, but also all my little Markdown code, which is it's like you're writing in posting on a web form on a message board on the web or something like that. It's super simple markup, and then so this gives me my preview.
Wow, that's great. And that's going to go on 6 colors?
Yeah, this one's already up on 6 colors. This is where I wrote it. And then it syncs to Dropbox and Google Drive and OneDrive and iCloud Drive and all those document pickers. And it's got a macro language in it, which is pretty great too. So you can build macros in, I think this app uses JavaScript. And these can be fairly complex, like this app link one, if I select the name of an app, and then run the app link macro, it will automatically query the App Store, find the URL of that app. It'll let me pick which app I mean, and then it inserts the right hyperlink directly into the document, which is pretty awesome. So it's got a lot of great stuff like that.
Have you ever tried, this is something that CGP Grey
CGP Grey, yes.
told me about, told me about in a video, I don't know, is editorial.
He was at my house the other week.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that guy.
Yeah, great guy.
Great YouTube videos. He writes scripts for his videos.
Indeed.
And so he uses this app because not only does it do John Gruber's Markdown and plain text, of course, but it also does templates, screenplay templates. So
what app is that?
Wow, I forgot the name of it. I just opened it. Editorial.
Oh, Editorial. Yeah, Editorial
that?
is great. I've got that. Yeah, I've got that right here too.
Show his, because you'll have more content.
No, I have very little in here.
Oh,
right
you
now,
don't? All right.
Sadly. But it's got a lot of great features, and it's based on, I think this one is this one Python script?
Yeah, because the guy who wrote this wrote Pythonista, which is my favorite.
Oli Zorin, right?
Yeah.
So the same idea that there's no system-wide scripting language in iOS. So these apps have
to do it
scripting engines. So OneWriter has a JavaScript-based engine. This has a Python-based engine, but it's incredibly powerful. So you can build up all sorts of different scripts, just like macros in Microsoft Word or something like that, and they can go out on the internet and pull data in and munge it around and then do kind of amazing things with it, switch to other apps and send data to other apps. A lot of functionality. There are a lot of different Markdown editors out there. OneWriter and Editorial, I think, are my two favorites right now.
Well, I love the scripting. And maybe the criterion for choosing would be, are you more comfortable with JavaScript or Python?
Sure.
If you didn't have any facility in either, but you knew you wanted to do scripting, I'd probably choose Python because it's probably a simpler language to learn. There are a lot of great ways to learn it. JavaScript can be a little daunting if you've not done any programming, but Python's pretty straightforward.
It also depends on who you know. Both of those apps let you download macros written by other people.
Yeah.
And so if you know people or you can find the macros that do what you want, maybe that's all you need is you need a friend who knows how to use Python or JavaScript. Now, if all of this talk of scripting languages makes you a little bit nervous, I should also say, you know, if you just want to write things and especially if you're an Office 365 subscriber, or if you're comfortable in Microsoft Word, Word for iOS is great. It's legitimately a very good app, and I have written lots of stuff in Word for iOS.
If you're used to using Word on the desktop, would it just translate? It's the same kind of look and feel?
Yeah, I actually think it's better than Word for the Mac.
Isn't that funny?
It's a really nice implementation. It's got what you'd expect from Word. It doesn't have everything. It is a mobile version, but it's pretty complete, and I'm impressed with what it can do. So I think if you're somebody who's comfortable with Microsoft stuff and you've got access to the Microsoft suite of products, it's worth looking at iOS versions of all of those apps, but especially of Word.
For years we've said Google does the best apps, not for Android, but for iOS. It puts its best programmers and puts out its best apps on iOS. And the same is clearly true for Microsoft. You can't even use their Touch First Word on Windows Phone. Maybe it's out by now, but it wasn't out for a long time. It came out first on iOS, and it works best on iOS. So it's interesting. These companies recognize that, I guess, you know, iOS is the place to be if you're going to do a touch-first application.
Yeah, I wish Google Docs for iOS was better.
Yeah.
It doesn't support split-screen multitasking on the iPad right now, which makes me sad. It's okay, but it's a little weird. I think they built it so much for the web that it's kind of hard to get it to translate into an app without it just feeling like a web browser. So it's not my favorite. I do use it. I use all the Google apps too, but I try not to write in Google Docs for iOS just because it's not the best.
We do all our rundowns in Google Sheets.
Yeah, and I use that all the time.
It works. That works pretty well.
It works pretty well.
Yeah.
It's again, it's not quite as good. Like Excel is a better implementation
Of course,
of a spreadsheet,
but it's not cross-platform web and all. Well, I guess
Exactly.
it is. You could use Excel for
You
the web.
could, but almost everybody is using Google Sheets for stuff like that,
Yeah,
and it's fine. The other app I wanted to mention, although it's not quite out yet. It's actually coming out hopefully next week.
We have an exclusive, ladies and gentlemen.
We do. It's Scrivener. Now, you've probably heard people like Andy Anako talk about Scrivener on the Mac. There's a Windows version as well. It's mostly for long-form writing, people who write things like theses and stuff like that. But it's a great tool for writing novels.
The idea is that you do research and you save clippings for your research into Scrivener, and then they're available to you as you write. Am I right about that? Is that kind of the point of Scrivener? It's kind of like a research plus writing tool.
Yeah, exactly right. It has, so here, this is a novel that I am working on. I've got my manuscript. I've got a whole bunch of notes. I've got character lists. I've got bookmarks. I've got my entire outline. So in fact, if I go into the manuscript and I go to this chapter and press the info button, I can see I've got a little summary.
Oh,
I've got which character this is from the viewpoint of, the status, which is this is my revised draft. I can have other notes in there, and then it'll all compile out, and it syncs with the Mac and Windows version.
I was going to say, it looks like you've been using this for a long time, but that's because you synced it with your Macintosh.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of revision on iOS, but I wrote it on my Mac using Scrivener for Mac, and then it lives in Dropbox. They're using Dropbox syncing
Instead of iCloud.
Instead of iCloud. Well, I mean, since they have a Windows version,
right.
iCloud would only get them so far.
Right.
But there are also technical issues that they've written about involving that. Dropbox works really well.
Well, I noticed both everything that we've talked about so far offers Dropbox integration.
Absolutely.
For your cloud saving. Is that important for you? Is that something you look for?
It is. It is. I want a cloud syncing solution of some sort. Dropbox is my #1 choice because I'm a paying Dropbox customer.
You already have it.
I already have it. I save most of my stuff in Dropbox anyway. And I want to be able to, if I start writing something on the Mac and then I go to my iPad and I'm out in the backyard or I'm at a coffee shop or something like that, I want to be able to get to it easily. I can open the Dropbox app and find the file and say open in this text editor and all of that. But it's a lot better if I can just, from within the text editor, open it and know that as I'm writing, my Dropbox file is being updated.
Yeah.
Instead of having a second version that I have to remember at the end of my iOS session to save back to Dropbox so that I can open it back up on my Mac and pick up where I left off.
This is how iCloud was supposed to work.
Yeah.
But it's always been a problem for app developers. Apple uses it.
It can work. I've seen it work.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
I've
true.
seen it work.
Local
It
man
does.
sees iCloud work. But for the most part, I mean, I've seen the Google's and Microsoft stuff work too.
Right.
But Dropbox is the one that I prefer, and I think a lot of app developers like how Dropbox has set up their APIs and things like that. So they work
another
well.
reason to use it, and I'm wondering if you use this. You can use if this then that with Dropbox. So I'm wondering, for instance. One of the things I do is if I'm going to record, I want to post audio on my blog, I record it in an app on iOS that saves to Dropbox, and I have an if this then that script that watches for the Dropbox file. When it sees the Dropbox file, then it puts it up on SoundCloud, and then watches SoundCloud. When it sees SoundCloud, it puts it on my blog. So it's a workflow that's automated that simplifies publishing for me. Have you used it that way at all?
Not for this, no. But although that's an interesting idea. I think when I wrote this first draft of this novel, I was posting it on a private blog for my friends to read and also to put the pressure on me to finish it.
Yeah.
And if I were doing that today, I would probably look into some sort of workflow like that so I could get it out of the writing tool and somewhere else easily.
You said an interesting thing, and I think that this, people often say, well, can I do all my work on the iPad? I think really the best way to do it is what you're doing, which is you use a computer to do the big data entry, the writing of the novel. Or in the case of a photographer, you use Lightroom. You put all your photos in that on the computer. But there's something wonderful about being able then to get in bed or sit on a couch and use your iPad to do editing, post-processing, selection. And so you're using it, you've written the novel, but you're doing the stuff, the more leisurely, less typing stuff on the iPad because it's synced. And similarly with Lightroom, I love the idea that I can go through a massive Lightroom catalog after a trip, and instead of having to sit in my desk and process it, I can use my iPad to at least select the pictures I want to save. I think that's a very nice scenario, and one reason that both a computer and an iPad, probably a Mac and an iPad, are the best, are a really good team.
Yeah, there's so much that's been made out of this idea that, well, the iPad can replace your Mac.
Yeah.
And, you know, it can in a lot of cases, and I have written stories entirely on the iPad, and I can do most of my job on the iPad now if I want to. Some of it's a little harder than it should be, but I can. But I do really believe in being team both, right? The idea that you are using both in the right environments, and I'm on my Mac when I think it's appropriate, and I'm on my iPad when I think it's appropriate. And also the iPad being a little more freeing, yeah, I can sit on the couch, or I'll take that to Starbucks and do some work and get a little change of pace and get out of the office, and it all syncs, so it's all fine. I come back to my desk, I'm back on the Mac again, and I like having those two devices work together like that.
Yeah, and of course, Apple would love to sell you all the extra stuff and get you in the ecosystem.
Sure.
But I also don't think, even though I really never understood why they pitched the iPad Pro as a laptop replacement. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Why suffer? Yes, you could do it, but you have to squeeze it into it a little bit. Why suffer? Why not just have a solution that works best for you, and if it involves two devices, that's fine, right?
Sure. I don't think you should say only use one device. Choose your device.
Yeah,
right?
I don't understand why.
There are going to be some people for whom a laptap is all they need, and there are going to be some
or
people
if you can
for whom,
only afford one.
Sure, exactly. And then there's some people for whom an iPad is all that they need, and that's great too. And if you can't afford both and you can do it that way, I think that gives you the most flexibility. But I mean, I'm using my iPad to do a lot more work than I used to. But even like with audio stuff, I tend to process that on my Mac because I've got an iMac.
Yeah,
it's
last
got
time
4
you were here,
cores.
you showed us all the tools you use to do audio.
Right? And I can edit a podcast on my iPad, and I do, and it's great when I travel. A lot of times I will do that. I don't bring a laptop, I just bring my iPad. But all that audio was processed on a Mac before I even sideloaded it onto my iPad.
And why force yourself into that, limiting role just for purity's sake or whatever?
No, I do it because I don't want to take two devices if I can take one. But that should be the reason to do it, not on a dare or anything like that.
On a dare. Or because Apple said.
Yeah.
Apple said I could
throw my
laptop away. Well, I don't want to. I want to use both. And if you can afford it, it's great. And if you use it as a professional tool, if you're a writer or a photographer or a musician, then there's a real justification for having the best tools for the job so that it gets out of the way of your art.
Well, this is what I did. I bought an iPad Pro and I didn't buy a MacBook. I still have my MacBook Air. And that was my decision, was I wanted that MacBook or that iPad Pro, and the existence of that iPad Pro and what I can do with it means I don't need a new MacBook too. So that's how my justification for it was. I have an older laptop and an iPad Pro instead of just a shiny new laptop.
Yeah. All right, so Scrivener, that'll be out next week.
Hopefully. Apple has to approve it. I think it's in approval now, but
how
it's
much
in
is it
beta.
going to
I've been
be?
Using it. I don't
Do you
know
know
how much it's going to be.
It's
I've
not an inexpensive program.
No, it's a professional writing tool. Lots of professional novelists and other people who do long-form writing. But if you've heard of Scrivener and if you've thought about it, it works on the iPhone too. The idea that I've heard from a lot of people who are novelists, that the idea that they can edit their book or work on their book while they're sitting in a waiting room somewhere is actually really exciting to them. Since it all syncs, that's all possible, which is pretty great.
Scrivener on the Mac is in the Mac App Store, is $45.
Right.
That gives you some idea.
Exactly.
It's not going to be a 99-cent app. It'll be
definitely not.
$5, $10, $15, something.
Maybe more. I don't know.
Maybe more. But it's a professional tool, and it's so funny because $45 for a professional writing tool on a desktop computer seems like a lot because it's the App Store, but in the scheme of things, it's nothing. It's very inexpensive compared to Microsoft Word. So, and I think that it'll be the same. It'll be kind of a similar kind of thing. The other apps that we mentioned, I mentioned Editorial, which is the Python-based, Python-scripted writing application. It does Markdown, but it also does to-do lists, and it does scripting using a template called Fountain. Do you write scripts for your Incomparable?
I have.
Do you do it in a scripting program, or you just write them out?
I have used the John August's, it's a Highland, which uses the Fountain variant of
So you
Markdown.
like Fountain?
I do.
Yeah, it's a Markdown for screenwriting.
Right.
What's nice is you can write naturally, indicate, sometimes just with the stuff you're writing, how it's going to be formatted, because scripts, if you're going to submit them to Hollywood, have to be very precisely formatted.
Rigid formats that were decided decades ago, right?
Yeah.
And I think John August, who is himself a screenwriter, a successful screenwriter, and is the developer of this product, got frustrated that you couldn't just sort of use a more casual, comfortable style, something based on Markdown, and then let the software worry about the formatting. The computer
let
can
them
do it.
that. Yeah,
exactly.
And then if you like JavaScript, Jason recommends OneWriter. Is it ONE?
Nope. Numeral one writer. If you're very lucky, you can get you can write in OneWriter. You can do all your to-dos in To-Do. There's probably a app that starts with
is there three?
We just count them up. But OneWriter is the numeral one writer.
I love it. Thank you, Jason. You brought some. It's fun to get a little exclusive. Scrivener will be out next week, and I know Andy Ihnatko on MacBreak Weekly has been really waiting for iOS version of Scrivener. He loves Scrivener, uses it a lot.
Yep.
Our show today brought to you, I don't have to tell you because I think you know a little bit about it, Audible.com. Jason Snell's a big Audible fan. Every time you're here, we talk about Audible. That's one of the cool things about being in the Audible Club. If you're an audiobook listener and you listen to audiobooks from Audible, is when you meet another Audible listener, it's a great conversation. What have you listened to lately? I found a book yesterday. Jason Heiner was on Twit. There's a new book about Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton, just the duel part, right? We've both read Ron Chernow's incredible biography of Alexander Hamilton. That was the inspiration for the Tony Award-winning Broadway show, which we're both big fans of. You even do a podcast about Pod for Ham. Well, apparently there's a book now on Audible that is about the Burr-Hamilton duel, and even today there's still debate over what really happened in that duel, and Aaron Burr was tried for murder, and I can't wait to read it. If you go to Audible, here's the deal, the challenge for you. I'm going to give you a free book. The challenge is, what book? There's so many to choose from. 250,000 wonderful books. All the bestsellers now come out on Audible, fiction and nonfiction. All the best science fiction. In fact, Audible's done a wonderful thing. They've gone back in time to record classic science fiction. So great Heinlein and Asimov books that were never available in audio now are. Thank you, Audible. And you see all the Star Wars books. I understand that The Force Awakens is a really good Star Wars book if you're looking for one. There's a classic, The Help. I loved that. That was one of the things Audible does sometimes with books, and The Help is a good example. They do audio dramatization, so they have several voices, including Octavia Spencer, and it's kind of like a play a little bit or a movie, but it's the exact words in the novel brought to life by multiple readers. I love it when they do it. They call it a dramatization, but it's not edited or abridged. It's the full book, but it just comes to life in the voices of these extraordinary women. What a wonderful book that was. It inspired a great movie, but if you haven't read Catherine Stockett's the novel, The Help, you really, really have to. You can get that free right now. Pick your book, then go to audible.com/iOS today. So you'll be signing up for the Gold account. That's a book a month, plus the Daily Digest of the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. Cancel any time in the first 30 days. You'll pay nothing, but that book will be yours to keep forever. And it's really fun to listen to them on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer, even if you only have a browser now. So sometimes I use a Chromebook, and Audible recently added the ability to listen and stream it in the browser, so I can listen anywhere I am. Audible.com/iOS today. Do you have a book you want to?
Yeah, Lawrence M. Schoen wrote a book called Barsk, The Elephant's Graveyard. It's a great science fiction novel. It's about talking animals, and yet it's not a fantasy novel. It's a science fiction novel. It's really interesting. I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, the main characters are elephants. I
have so many books now on my Audible wish list that you recommend, weird fantasy books that you recommend. You have a kind of a bent for the unusual sci-fi.
I'm just reading them. I generally am reading the books that are nominated for the Hugo and Nebula
Awards.
That's
smart.
And I use those as reading lists, and there are always amazing finds in there. And this was one of those. It was nominated for the Nebula Award, and it is unusual. It is unlike any other book that I've read, but it's very good. Very good.
Barsk, I'm putting it on my wish list. I only get 2 Audible credits a month. I can't keep up with you, Jason. Although one of the things I love about walking, now that I walk, is I get an hour and a half of listening every day.
That's the way to do it.
I love it. It's back. I got to commute again, but of the best kind. No traffic, beautiful fresh air, birds singing, and a wonderful audio book in my ears. Thank you, Audible, for your continued support of iOS today. All right, moving on, a couple of news stories, and I want to thank Megan Maroney, even though she's on vacation. She does not rest. That woman does not rest.
She's the best.
She put together some news for us. I'll start with one that I meant to mention last week on MacBreak Weekly. Organ donation. iOS 10 is going to have, in the Health app, right?
Yeah.
A way that you could fill out a form to donate organs on your death.
Yep.
Now, I know this is a subject that people go, oh, I don't want to think about this. But if you could just do this, a few taps, and register as an organ donor, it could save a life. It could save more than one life. Your liver, your lungs, your kidney, your heart could save many lives. And there's a continual shortage of organ donations. You know, I think one of the reasons Apple probably is interested in this is, remember that when Steve Jobs was very ill, he needed a new liver. And it was a real challenge. He couldn't get up to the top of the list by pulling strings. He was on the list. And even though his death could have been imminent, he had to wait. And it was a long wait. He was lucky he found an organ donation and was able to get one. And it kept him alive for another year. But I think that this is probably why there's some real awareness at Apple. So register as an organ donor. This is going to be a new feature in the Health app. Organ, eye, or tissue donor. And there's the press release for it. It'll be sent immediately to the National Donate Life Registry. So it immediately gets on that list. And should you go to the hospital, should you pass away, the doctors will know immediately. And of course, it's very important that they're able to get that information promptly and act on it promptly, because they're only viable for a very short period of time. So it's really good to do this. That way your loved ones don't have to worry about it. In California, we're lucky because when we get a driver's license, we can check that box, and it's on the back of the driver's license. I don't know if they're going to put this in the emergency information.
I assume they will, and that's something that people don't know about, I think, that the idea that there's this emergency contact information.
ICE, they call it, in case of emergency.
And it's in your phone in the locked portion. In case of an emergency, there's emergency information, and you can put your information, who to contact, medical information. If you're allergic to something, you can put it in there, so you should definitely check that out.
And your next of kin or somebody to be contacted?
Yeah, emergency contacts, the whole thing. And that's available when you get to the emergency screen if you can't log in.
Even if you're not on iOS 10, where do you do this if you're not on iOS 10?
I think it might be in the Health app, or maybe you just get to it from the lock screen. I forget exactly where it is, but that's the beauty of it is that there's this emergency contact.
And I've talked to first responders, and very often the number one thing they want is who to notify, so who to call.
Yeah.
But if you are allergic to something, and it would be harmful to you to be treated in some ways, you want them to know that when you're in the ambulance. They'll grab your phone. They'll look for a medical alert bracelet. They'll look for a necklace, but they'll also look on your phone. So make sure you have that ICE information on your phone, and it's particularly important if you have an allergy, don't you? I saw you wear a medical alert bracelet.
I used to wear a medical alert bracelet. Well, for me, it's one of my pupils is larger than the other, and it can be misdiagnosed as a brain injury.
Yeah.
And so the idea is to always, if you can't speak for yourself, if you've got any strange medical conditions, any allergies, to have it on your devices. And at this point, yeah, your phone is one of the great sources of information. Paramedics know to look there, not only to contact people if you're unconscious, like they know who to call. They can call your spouse or your parent or whoever. And they also know, oh, this guy is allergic to this, or, oh, we don't need to drill a hole in his head because those people are supposed to be like that.
That's good, actually. I can understand why you might want to put that on.
My mother always said it was either that or get "do not open" tattooed on my skull. So I went with the medical alert.
Oh, in case of emergency, crack here.
Yeah.
By the way, just a stat, 121,678 people are currently waiting for life-saving organ transplants in the U.S., 100,000 of those in need of a kidney. So this is a real need, a real national emergency. It is not. Sometimes I think people are a little superstitious. They don't like the idea. You're giving life.
Yeah, you're not going to need it, and somebody else does.
You probably won't be using that. It's not going to kill you any faster. They do wait till you're dead.
Yep.
But I'm an organ donor, and I think it's really important you get everybody to take advantage of this. The White House said in May, 95% of Americans support organ donation, only 50% are registered. So it's like one of those things. Yeah, I believe in organ donation for him.
Yeah, exactly right.
I'm glad Apple's doing that. The other story, and I wanted to spend a little time with you on this, is you can now put iOS 10 and Sierra, right? The public
Yes,
betas
absolutely.
are out for the new Mac OS and the new iOS. It's a pretty simple process to put iOS 10 on your phone. You merely go to beta.apple.com and enroll your phone. You have to log in with your Apple account. It doesn't have to be a developer account.
Right.
You just log in with your Apple account, and you'll see a link. Enroll your phone. Once it's enrolled, then there's a profile you have to download. You have to do that from your phone. So you're going to go to a site. The site is on the page there. You're going to take your phone. You're going to go to that site and download a new profile. What is that, by the way?
It's profiles are things to override system settings, and Apple lets you do it for like installing third-party software or VPNs, things like that. And what this profile does is change where your phone looks or your iPad looks for the software update server to find out, is there a new version of my software available? And if so, once you get that set up and that profile's in there, then it looks at the public beta software stream instead of the main software stream, and it says, oh, there is a new version that I can update to. It's iOS 10 public beta version 1. And it'll install it and restart, and then you're on the public beta. And when they do the next public beta version, it'll update to that version, and you just are on the public beta train after that. And on the Mac, it's similar. You download a little profile, and then you're on the beta software update. And you'll get new versions via software update, just like you do for regular versions.
So once you get that profile, you just wait, and the next thing you'll see is, oh, there's an update. Or you could even
you can
go to
general
your update
settings and check for update, and it'll say, oh, yeah, there is a new version now. It's 10.0, and off you'll go.
It takes a significant amount of storage to do it. I know some people's phones are too full.
Yeah, it's less than it used to. With iOS 9, they made it use a lot less space than it used to. But yeah, if your phone is full to the brim, you may. I mean, you want to back up your phone first, either on iTunes or using iCloud.
Should have said that.
Absolutely, first thing you should do. And I actually would say, unless you really, 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 really are excited about running a beta, on your phone, you know, on a Mac, you can install this on a second computer or a partition or an external drive. On your iPhone, it's very hard to roll it back. So we all rely on our phones so much. I would say everybody should give it some serious thought before they update any device they rely on to the iOS beta. But if you're going to do it, you got to back it up. And you got to clear it and take your photos off of it and clean up the space so you've got enough space to.
Incidentally, and Lisa didn't know this, so Lisa did it, and I said, you know, the easiest way to back it up is use your USB cable and hook it up to a computer that has iTunes on it. Go to your phone page in iTunes and press the backup button. But before you do that, there is a check mark below that is off by default. But turn it on.
Use encrypted backup.
Use encrypted. And she didn't know this. The reason is it'll back up your passwords and settings.
Right, but only if they're encrypted, because otherwise your passwords would be backed up in the clear. So you have to turn on encrypted backups, give it a password, and then if you need to restore, everything comes back, including all of your passwords.
Much easier.
It's way easier to restore from a backup that's encrypted.
She was complaining. She said, oh, I don't want to restore from a backup. I have to re-enter all my passwords. I said, well, didn't you use an encrypted? She said, where's...
People don't know.
You don't know.
It's buried in
right.
iTunes.
Yeah, it's just down there. There's a checkbox. So we've backed up our phones. We've considered, do we really want to run on, you know, new software, on maybe buggy software on our iPhone? Maybe we were willing to take the risk. We put it on there. The first thing you'll notice is some software doesn't work at all. Most software I found does. Your phone seems to work fine.
Some apps do seem to like not launch, and that's not surprising because chances are there are some apps on your phone that were written before iOS 10 was announced, and they may not work. And you know, you're actually not allowed to give bad reviews or even review software when you're on the beta, and that's one of the reasons why.
Yeah,
is that it's not the developer's fault if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But there will be some apps that don't work right or don't work at all.
The other thing I should point out, if you want to play Pokemon Go, is, and this is a weird little bug, some apps work mostly, in this case, it works fine, except for one thing. For some reason, it can't tell the accelerometer in the phone, so the Pokemon Go AR version, where you see the real world through the camera, no Pokemon will show up.
Right.
It still works, you just play it without the AR. But there's little things like that that may not work, and they may be frustrating for you, so you just don't do this unless you like to live on the edge. Now, you have it on your phone.
I do.
So the first thing I noticed is the notifications. They've changed a lot.
Yeah, notifications are pretty dramatically different. There's a new style. kind of opaque boxes.
If you put it kind of where your iPad is, we'll be able to. If you, I don't know, do you not want to show it? There, that's the new look. So this is your lock screen, by the way. And one of the other
this I pulled down, but it will look the same on your lock screen.
One of the other things I noticed is that in order to unlock the phone, you can't just touch the fingerprint reader now. You have to either press and hold it or press it twice. That's so you have time to look at the lock screen.
Right, because that's one of the complaints people had about the new version of Touch ID is that it worked works too well, all too well. So they've changed that behavior. Slide to unlock is gone, and there's you do a little press, and that'll give you the unlock.
What's cool, it's almost as if you don't even have to unlock your phone now in iOS, because if you 3D touch a bubble, you often can deal with it. You can respond to messages, for instance, without unlocking the phone, or do you have to still unlock it?
It depends on your security settings.
Okay.
Your security settings, you can actually say, what do you want to have? Because it is a security
you may not
issue,
want
right?
people to respond to messages.
What do you want to let people do without unlocking your phone?
Right.
And it's more convenient for you, but it's a little less secure. So people will be able to decide what they want to have on that outside.
Can you show us? I don't know how much of your personal information
this isn't that exciting, but like I've got Nuzzle here, and Nuzzle has the idea of a personal
Nuzzle.
Newsletter.
Yeah.
Right. So if I 3D touch on this, it pops it up and says Add to Newsletter, and I can just act on it right from that screen.
Look at that.
And there are lots of things like that. And there will be an equivalent behavior. And here I
feel like
item comes up,
finally
and there's a
3D
settings
touch
switch,
is
so.
starting to come into its own. Like this is almost what 3D touch was invented for, was to give you this chance to interact with a notification. And I love the idea that in some ways we don't have to launch applications anymore. I think this is the coming thing on Android as well as on iOS.
Right. That it should all be based on context. I think you see that with what Apple's doing on the Apple Watch too, where I think they're really assuming that a lot of your interactions on that are not going to be from an app launcher, but they're going to be by tapping on a complication that's on the watch screen. Right. And on iOS, it's all about those notification bubbles that you can just be acting. There are probably some apps that you will never get to by any other means but notifications, and you may not even launch them then. You may just interact with them. It used to be notifications were really dumb, but now things can actually happen, like animations. Code can run inside these notifications, so you can have animations and you can see locations on a map and things like that. So at that point, do you need to open that app at all to do something? And it's pretty exciting, and it's been a while. They really haven't redesigned notifications since they initially designed it, so this is a real rethink for them.
It also kind of answers some people's complaints, I'll include myself in this, that they haven't updated, we call it Springboard, the user interface, the Finder, at all since they added folders in 2009. So, but that doesn't matter anymore because the notifications are so rich. We don't even really care about Springboard. We don't really even look at the icons anymore because we interact with notifications. And more apps really have rich notifications because they understand that that's the best way to get your attention. It used to be, I want to be the app on the front page of your a phone. Now it's, I want to be the app that pops up with a notification. Even Instagram, remember that kind of scandal or upset people were having because everybody's saying, don't forget to add me to notifications. You can add one of the people you follow on Instagram, you can add them, or many of them if you want, to your notifications so you'll see when they post a picture on Instagram. Well, now this will be part of your user interface. The other big change is messages, and this is why I asked Lisa, I wouldn't normally ask her to use a beta, but I wanted to be able to message her using these new rich messages. We saw a lot of these features at WWDC. They're not all in there yet, right? Is Invisible Ink in there yet?
I don't think
I haven't been able to find it.
I haven't seen that either.
But there's touch, drawing, heartbeat. You can't draw characters yet, but you can draw pictures.
Yeah, let me see if I've got a.
Show us some. Do you have anybody you can message? Look at that. There's a handwritten message.
Yeah, that's right. And I should be able to do one of these. It'll send a little fake heartbeat.
And then if you tap
or
these
draw a
things,
sketch.
So there's quite an elaborate interface on there.
Yeah, it's very much like the Apple Watch, actually.
You can also do a broken heart, which it's interesting that they provide that facility. I guess many people at Apple have broken hearts. Animated GIFs are now available. I love that. This is a little bit of catch-up, frankly. I mean, many of these things can be done on other messaging applications, but it's about time. Have you? Oh, look at that.
Little pop-up emoji reactions.
You can annotate previous messages too, can't you? It's a little tricky to do it, but there is some way to do that.
Yeah, and one of the funny things is in terms of compatibility, I can't really show this here, but
Nobody can see them.
But what happens is it actually will send you a second text message that's only visible if you're not using a compatible client.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it'll say things like, "It's great to see you," and then there'll be a second message that says "Sent with shooting star," because. That's
if
all.
you say happy birthday, exclamation mark, balloons, and not just balloons around the message, they float up and they fill the screen. I
But
mean,
it'll say, sorry, sent with gentle effect.
With an effect.
Which, I guess it's a beta. That may change, but you do want to, right? If you're sending to somebody who's not using a compatible device, you do want to be able to explain to them
like
what they
subtitles.
meant to do there.
Yeah.
And so that seems to be how they're doing it, is
good.
actually having a little optional message that rides along.
Actually, that's a sensible way to do
clever.
it. Yeah. I mean, I had to make Lisa do it because there was no other way. I don't know anybody else on iOS 10. Now I can message you.
Yeah, you can.
And
Send me that
and send
shooting
you
star.
heartbeats and, and things. Anything else we should be aware of in the beta? Any other compelling reasons to jump to it? I think those are. I think the new notifications by themselves are a massive improvement.
I agree. I mean, I would say that for regular people, those are the two most interesting things now. It's still a little early. It feels pretty good for it's essentially the second beta.
Right.
I would maybe recommend people wait a few more weeks and see how a couple more betas, go through a couple more, get all the horror stories out, get all the bugs fixed, so it's a much closer to shipping. But one of the reasons I installed it is because I wanted to install the WatchOS 3 beta, which you have to be on the developer side to do that, and only developers have access, because if it kills your watch, you can't go back because it doesn't have anything to plug into.
Oh, interesting.
But I wanted to use
You can roll back
WatchOS.
iOS 10 if you've made the backup. You just restore from your backup. That's why you
can do
make
a full
that backup.
restore.
How's WatchOS 3?
It's pretty great. It's pretty great. I think it's going to be. I think all the watch people are going to be happy. It turns out Apple kind of. I don't know. I think they were really conservative. They were afraid that the watch was going to run out of battery. They were terrified that all the reviews were going to be, this is a useless piece of junk because it runs out of battery at 5 in the afternoon.
Yeah, see, that isn't good.
And so they overshot. And at the Apple Developer Conference, the head of the software development group at Apple admitted they have RAM and battery to spare on the Apple Watch because they overdid it. They overestimated their performance, which I think for good reason. They didn't want the product to be dead on arrival. As a result, WatchOS 3, it's almost like you're getting a hardware upgrade.
Wow.
Because they're actually able to use way more memory and more battery than they used in the first two versions of the WatchOS. So it is, apps stay open. You don't, if an app's in a complication or in the dock, they have a new dock, they're using that button that used to be sort of a useless button to activate an app dock. If apps are in either of those locations, they stay in memory and they update in the background. And as a result, the apps that you care about the most, when you tap on them, they open immediately.
Oh, wow.
Which is, if you use the watch, you know
Yeah.
that apps just sit there and spin for a long time, and that doesn't happen on WatchOS 3. The issues with the beta are that most of the apps on the watch right now from third parties haven't been updated even for WatchOS 2, and they don't work quite right. But I'm impressed. I think that this is Apple getting it right, realizing the mistakes they made with the first take that they had on the watch. And so I'm optimistic that watch owners will be really happy.
Will there be a public beta of WatchOS 3?
I think not, because of this very thing. It's like, how would you restore, right? You can't plug it into anything because there's no port on it. Right. It's all wireless. So I think that's why there's only a developer beta, is if somebody bricked their watch, they would have to send it back to Apple, essentially, to get help, and
Yikes.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. So the fall for WatchOS 3, macOS Sierra, and iOS 10, all three should come out roughly the same time.
I would imagine perhaps the same day.
Same day, yeah.
Which will probably be right about when the new iPhone comes
announcement. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thanks for the tour of the new stuff. And I agree with your advice to wait for the next iOS 10, because what has to be happening right now is all the developers who have apps that don't work well with iOS 10 are hearing about it from their users and are scrambling to get it working with iOS 10. So I would bet that a lot of the problems will go away in the next version.
Probably will happen. They know that they have to get them ready. In fact, the dynamic has changed a lot, because it used to be that they didn't worry about developer betas. They would just get it ready for the regular people. Now there's a public beta.
Exactly.
They're much more motivated to release bug fixes now because the public beta people are angry.
Yeah, exactly.
That might not be fair for the developers, but that's life.
Hey,
That's where we are. Yeah.
Hey, People upgrade on Apple. That's one of the things that's unique to the Apple ecosystem is people do these upgrades. You know, most people are keeping up with the latest version if they can. Jason Snell is here. It's great. Megan's got the week off. She'll be back next week. She's on the beach. She's going to be very tan. I can tell you right now. I've already seen pictures. She's going to be brown as a berry when she gets back. I think she's in Cancun with her kids and her husband and having a great time. But I'm so glad Jason could be here. It's always a joy to have Jason Snell. You can find his work at sixcolors.com. He does the Incomparable podcast, which is the incomparable dot. I want to say com. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And many other podcasts, including, yes, if you're a Hamilton fan, or you're not, you must be close to done.
Oh,
Pod
no.
for Ham.
We are at intermission right now. We have all
done.
of Act 2 to go, yeah.
Of course, Saturday was the last day for 5 of the cast members. And what a great show. We're going to all get to see it when it comes to San Francisco in the spring. But what an amazing Broadway show. I listen to the soundtrack every morning almost. It's a great way to start the day. Our show today brought to you by Texture. If you are a magazine buff, I am. I like great writing, right? I like long form. Sometimes Stephen Levy calls it slow writing. The stuff where there's a lot of thought put into it. And some of the greatest writers in the world write for magazines. Some of the greatest photographers in the world take pictures for National Geographic and Photography Today. Well, these magazines, if you were to subscribe to them, would cost a lot of money. And think of all the clutter. Your coffee table is burdened by these tons of magazines. Now, of course, you could just buy the issue off the newsstand and talk about wasting money. That's even more expensive. I've got a much better way. It's like Netflix, but for magazines. You pay once a month, a fair, low flat rate, and you get endless reads. 175 plus of the world's best magazines. I mean everything. National Geographic, The New Yorker, Wired, Popular Mechanics. Yes, you get your gossip magazines, your People, your Entertainment Weekly, your Rolling Stone, and your Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition. And the beautiful part about this is every page of the magazine on the newsstand today is there on your iPad, and back issues and bonus features that they can't put in print like video. All of that on your iPad, your iPhone, your Android device. You can have it on up to 5 devices. So Lisa has our family to subscription, but I use it on my iPad. I love that. That's a nice feature. I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't just do this. It's so great. You can even read the magazines offline, which is of course very important if you fly. You know, I used to have I'd go to the airport newsstand and buy a stack of magazines. I'd leave them on the plane, feel guilty about it. Now, I don't have to worry about it. I star my favorites. I get them on my iPad. I can read them anywhere, anytime. They have a lot of editorial curation, a top stories and new and noteworthy section. Those are updated every single day. So if you don't know what's good to read, you can find it very quickly, very easily. I would, right now, if I were you, go to texture.com/twit and just do the free trial and see. There's the Atlantic. I love that magazine. It's all the magazines I love. And there's, in every single one of these, there's once a month, there's a great article at least. This is a very good article, How American Politics Went Insane. I just read that in the Atlantic. Consumer Reports is in there, so you can get your ratings of consumer goods before you buy. The other thing I like is things like Adweek and Billboard, trade magazines that I'm kind of interested in, but I'm certainly not going to buy Billboard just to see the Hot 100 chart or see, what the hot records are. But if you've got it, it's great to be able to refer to it and look at it. Same thing with Adweek. Look, this is a treasure. You've got to do this. Texture.com/twit. There's a free trial. I can think of no reason why this summertime when you're heading off on vacation, you wouldn't try this and see what you think. Texture.com/twit. Share it with your family and your friends too. Well, maybe not your friends. You get 5 devices. I think you can share it with your friends. Texture.com/twit. At least tell them about it. If you like the show and you don't want to miss an episode, don't forget, you can subscribe to iOS Today. We have it on our website, twit.tv/iOS. But you can also get your favorite podcatcher and subscribe. You want to get every episode. We do audio and video, and I know for convenience, sometimes you like the audio version, you can listen in the car. But there's a lot of video, a lot of images in the show, so get both. Get the video and the audio. That way, if you want to see something that we're talking about, when you get home, you can pull it up on your screen and take a look at it. We also love your questions. You can email Megan@twit.tv or iOS Today@twit.tv. And if you want to get on screen, we love video questions. We've had a great time with people doing video questions. You can record it, put it on YouTube. Here's all I ask or leave a voicemail. All I ask, though, is that you keep it short. So start with your first name. You don't have to give us your last name. Keep your privacy intact. First name and city. Yeah, it's a nice way to introduce yourself. And keep it under 30 seconds. Voicemail 757-504-IPAD. 757-504-IPAD. Or again, iOS Today@twit.tv. Just send us a link to your YouTube. And yeah, it's right there. It's on the website, twit.tv/iOS. All right, we got some questions. I hope you've got some answers. Before the show, Jason said, I don't know if I can answer all of these. I said, Jason, if you and I together, putting our minds together, plus the chat room can't answer a question, there is no answer.
There's no answer. It's unanswerable.
It's unanswerable. Austin.
By definition.
I have a question about the Google Play Music app. Now, I use this as my favorite music app. When I download something, it tells me that I have authorized 4 devices out of 10, and I have to wait a year to deauthorize those devices. It's just my iPad and my iPhone, sometimes my laptop. Please help. This is the music industry. Don't blame Google or Apple or Spotify or anybody about the restrictions they place on there. This is what the music industry insists on. Apple has a similar policy.
Yep.
I think it's 5. Is it 10 or is it 5 devices?
I think it's 5 computers and 10 total devices.
Total.
Yeah.
Similar to Google. And Apple has the same thing where you can only deauthorize once a year. And what happens is, once you authorize a device, you may forget you've authorized it. It stays authorized till you deauthorize it, even if you don't have the device anymore. Imagine what I have to go through. I use a new phone every few months. Me
too.
Lots of devices. You too.
It's brutal.
So it's brutal. But this is the music industry, and this is because they're terrified of piracy. So Google Music. You can buy music, you can upload your music, and you can also stream it like Apple Music. You pay a monthly fee that varies depending on when you signed up and if you have a family plan or a regular plan. It's very similar to Apple Music pricing-wise, and very similar in the rules. And the reason is if you have, give it to your friends, and they don't want the entire dorm to be listening on your Google Play. So you can manage it. And you manage it by going to google.com on a browser. And
you can even go in the settings app and say My Devices.
Yeah.
And you can see a list of your devices.
In the settings on that app, there's a My Devices. That'll take you to a web page.
Your devices.
So if you're wondering, well, what are these devices? You can see at least what they think you've got registered.
It'll give you the names. It'll tell you the last time they were used. It's probably your 2 devices twice, is my guess, because that happens sometimes. You do a software update, something like that, it gets confused. It's probably not other people using your device surreptitiously. That's probably not what's happening. Your limit is 10, so I think please help. On one level, it's fine. I think it's going to be okay. Don't worry about it too much. And if you're really panicked about this and think there's all sorts of devices in there and I need to get rid of them, my understanding is if you call Google support and say help, they will do an auto clear and just wipe it back to 0, and then you log back into the devices you actually have.
They don't publicize that. They don't want the music industry to get upset. Apple does exactly the same thing.
Exactly the same thing.
You just call them up and say, hey, I don't know what's going on.
I think Apple even says like 1 time a year or something like that. You can call and just wipe out everything.
It's Jubilee. You get a free pass.
But you can manage them from the My Devices screen, and 10 is a pretty generous number, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Well, it is for most people, not for you and me.
No, that's true.
But notice Austin has 6 left, so it's not like you're going to run out. You know? I mean, it's just he's worried because he sees these extra ones. He doesn't think he signed up for.
Yeah, and that My Devices screen will tell him what those devices are, so you'll get peace of mind.
Captain Dave says he's an airline captain, and I fly with many different first officers. I love this. I have this problem too, Captain Dave. Over the course of a trip, I really get to know the people I'm flying with. Love them. They're fun. We have great conversations. Unfortunately, I'm terrible with names. I'll see them again in a few weeks, and they'll say, "Hi, Dave," and I'll draw a blank. It's not a good feeling. I love an app that would catalog people's pictures and names along with some info that's separate from my contact list. This is my dream. I meet a lot of people. People come here all the time and say, yeah, I was here 3 years ago for a broadcast, remember? I'll go, yeah, I remember, yeah, nice to see you again. But it's really embarrassing when I'm walking down the street and I see somebody I should really know, and I don't. And that's what I was hoping Google Glass. But remember, there's a creepy factor, and Google, in fact, decided they can do this. They opted out of doing facial recognition in general. Apple's even more strict, right? Apple says we're going to do only on device, and we're going to do privacy guards. What do they call it? Differential privacy.
Privacy, right?
So Apple absolutely won't do face recognition outside of the people that you've got on your phone. And I wish that were possible. You can upload to Google Photos, and here's what it used to be a great app, and I wish they still had it. Evernote had a great app called People. I think it was called People.
I think so.
And what you would do is you would meet somebody, and I find people, if you say, I have a terrible memory, do you mind if I add you to my contact list? And what you would do is you'd take a picture of them in People, and you'd hand it to them, and they'd fill out their contact information, add their name, and now you got it, and you could find it very quickly in Evernote. They killed that app. They had a food app. It was Hello, it was called.
Hello.
And then they had a food app, and they've killed it.
Oh. So for Dave, I would say you gotta. I don't know of an app that does this, but first off, he says separate from my contact list. One thing you could do is create a group in contacts for these people.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And then they'd still be in your contact list. You could still take a picture of them. You could get any contact information you wanted, or just have it just be their name and their picture, and filtered into the special, the onboard contact group. You could do it that way. The other way to do it would be to use something like Notes or Reminders or any app that will let you paste in a photo, especially, and then just start collecting names in one of those apps, which there are a lot of those. I actually thought something like Evernote might be a good use for this too.
Even though Hello no longer exists,
Yeah.
you can absolutely still use Evernote to do that.
Anything that lets you dump in photos and text would let you do this very easily, of
Right.
just taking pictures of people and writing a note about who they are. But I would say, depending on why you're saying separate from your contact list, you can make contact groups, and that's a great way to separate these people from the other people in your contacts. You can make them a separate group and view them all by themselves when somebody comes on the plane. So you only have 15 people to look through and say, which one is this? But any note-taking app or other organizer will do the trick too.
Yeah, I would vote for Evernote because it's on every platform. It's desktop, phone, tablet. It synchronizes. It has a instant picture feature, a button that you could push on the app that takes a picture right away and puts it in a note. That would really simplify it.
Yeah.
And if you want to be surreptitious, you say, hey, let me get your picture, and then later you could go and do the note and add the contact information while it's still in your head. I'm sympathetic.
It's tough.
This is, there's all sorts of books about, you need a mnemonic device. You look at the guy's shoes and you associate it with something on your street, and you do the thing. And I guess if you're in sales, you have to do that, but I've never been very, very good at it. One more. Let's do one more. And this comes from Sumit, maybe?
Sumit,
Sumit. Recently bought an iPad 9.2 Pro, the 9.2-inch version, upgraded from an iPad Air 2, which I gave to the kids. I've used it for a few weeks. There's not much of a difference between this and the iPad Air 2 because it's a Pro. It doesn't have Force Touch. There aren't a lot of apps for pencils. It's been a while since you've thoroughly covered this topic and must have apps for iPad Pro 9.2. What's your opinion of an iPad Pro? Should I keep it? I already bought it, or not buy it?
Well, what are the main reasons to upgrade, especially from the Air 2, which is the most recent version of the 9.2-inch before the iPad Pro came out? The reasons are it is faster, it really is, but it's not as noticeably fast as it is from an older iPad.
The iPads are pretty fast.
They are pretty fast. It's got the smart keyboard stuff, and it's got the pencil support. So really, unless you want one of those things, there's no reason to update.
Yeah.
But there are a lot. I would take not many apps for pencils. I mean, most drawing apps have been updated to support the Apple Pencil. Plus, you can navigate the UI.
There's that
for it.
great calligraphy app, which Renee Ritchie was talking about last week on Mac Break Today, that teaches you calligraphy using the pencil. I mean, there are apps, but if it doesn't ring your chimes, then you don't need it.
That's right. I mean, I don't draw, so for me, the Apple Pencil is sort of not relevant. The external keyboard support is nice. I bought the iPad Pro, the big one, because I wanted the bigger screen.
Right.
But for the 9.7 inch, it's not so different from an iPad Air 2. So unless you want, I think the smart cover is really good on that smaller iPad Air or iPad Pro. Because it's pretty light, it's not that bulky, and you've always got a keyboard with you. But again, if that doesn't matter to you, then those are the big reasons: the external keyboard with the smart cover and the pencil. And
I think the thing to understand, at least initially when the iPhone and the iPad came out, it's still kind of true for the iPhone. You always wanted the next one because it was an upgrade. It was always the next one. The iPad is no longer in that state. In fact, iPad sales have plummeted because people have the iPad they want and they don't feel any compulsion to get a new one. I think it's time to stop thinking that the new iPad is an upgrade. It's more like it's a different iPad. I got the big iPad Pro, and it was too big. I felt like I was carrying a giant pizza box
it's
around.
not for everyone.
So I gave it to one of our staff members who's an artist, and Greg loves it, and he draws all the time with it, and that's great for him. I ended up getting the iPad, the smaller iPad Pro, and I do like it because of the keyboard connector. This is what I'm using here, and speed I don't think is that much of a difference. It's certainly not better battery life or lighter. It's not an upgrade. It's a side grade. It's got different features.
Well, it's faster, and it's got the keyboard support, and it's got the pencil support. But if those matter to you, the other thing is it's very tough to do this upgrade conversation about the previous version because most people do not upgrade every single time there's a new product, right? So is the iPad Pro a better upgrade for people using the iPad Air 1 or the old iPad 4? Yeah, it's a way better upgrade. It's way faster and better in that case. But from the Air 2, it's those very specific features they added.
Yeah.
And so if the smart connector and the pencil don't matter to you, there's not a lot of reason to go from an Air 2 to a Pro.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that one. All right, get your hat ready. It's app cap time, and we're going to do that in just a moment. Reminder, if you want to get your questions answered, again, iOS Today at twit.tv or call and leave a short message, first name and city, 30 seconds. Be quick, be to the point, 757-504-IPAD. Don't worry, no one answers. I think, you know what, I don't like to call if somebody's going to answer. If I know I'm going to leave a message, that's fine. I don't want to get in a long conversation. So don't worry, no conversations will be involved. Megan put that in. I think she's right.
Yeah.
We won't answer the phone, don't worry. Our show today brought to you by Wealthfront. I love this idea. You know, everybody should be saving, right? You should be saving for retirement, for a rainy day. If you're young, you're saving for the kids going to college. You're saving for a down payment for a house. You got to have savings. The problem is, how do you make those savings grow? You don't want to just put them in the mattress because, in fact, that's the opposite of growth because of inflation. You're slowly losing money. And by the way, a savings account or a certificate of deposit is not much better. The interest rate's so low now, you have to really search to find anything that's like even half of 1%. So you're not even keeping up with the inflation rate. You have to invest. And I guess you could, if you're Clayton Morris, you can go out and buy houses in the Midwest and upgrade them. I don't think that's the best idea either. I think what you need to do is what smart people do, which is invest in equities, in the markets. And the best way to do this, well, not do it yourself, not get the guy down the street who has hung a shingle out on the strip mall. I'm a broker. I'll help you. Because you know why? They charge 1%, 2%, 3% a year sometimes of the money you have under investment, plus all those transaction fees. And you know what? They're not really acting in your best interest to get commissions. They're just trying to make a little on the side. If they were so good, I don't think they'd be sitting in a brokerage down the street. We're gonna take you to Wealthfront. This is not a human. This is a computer. But a computer, artificial intelligence, given the brains of some of the best people in the world on this stuff. Over 200 years of experience in investing. The people who wrote the books, over 20 different books, including Burton Malkiel, Charles D. Ellis. These are the guys, 16 different books. These are the guys who really have figured out how to do it. They're putting the latest Nobel Prize-winning academic research to work. So the software is super smart. And unlike you or a broker, it's not watching your investment every month, every quarter rebalancing. It's watching it every minute of every day. It's not day trading. I want to be clear. You're not, but it is trading constantly on your behalf, doing things like tax loss harvesting to increase the return while decreasing the tax bill. Stuff, very sophisticated stuff. Computers can do this, and they do it very affordably because they don't even take lunch. They don't have a fancy car. They don't have kids. That's just a computer. So you know what? I'll tell you what. I'll do it for 0.25% a year. What? 25 basis points. You find a better deal than that. That is a great deal. In fact, I get an even better deal because the first $15,000 you invest, they won't even charge a fee at all. And there are never any hidden fees, no transaction fees. It's completely transparent. You get an app or a dashboard on your computer on a website that you can see exactly what trades are being made on your behalf. In fact, if you go there right now, wealthfront.com/iOS today, you can get a free portfolio so you can see exactly what they've invested. And that's tailored to you. They're going to ask you not a lot of questions, not like a 20-page questionnaire, just a couple of minutes about your risk, about your time frame, that kind of stuff. And they'll generate a sample portfolio so you can see exactly what they'd be investing in for you. It's so cool. They'll even take a look at your current portfolio, see where you're wasting money and fees and if you're diversified properly and all of that stuff. This is the way to do it. This is really great. But I'm not going to tell you to put money in. I want you to go there, get the free portfolio, get the analysis, find out about it, read about it. Wealthfront.com/iOS today. The minimum investment is $500. They brought that down, and I like that because you can just dip your toe in it if you want. But do remember, the first $15,000 are fee-free, and not just for the first year, but forever, for life. Wealthfront.com/iOS today. This is how it should be. This is the way to do it. All right, we don our caps. We call them app caps. This is to honor.
We got a theme. We got a little green theme.
A little green theme. This is to honor the apps, to give them honor. Mm-hmm. To say we consider these the app you ought to look at this week. I'll let you start, Jason Snell.
All right, my app cap choice is an iPad-only app called Wonder Station from Weather Underground.
Oh, W-U-N-D-R.
N-D-R, Wonder Station. They have an iPhone app, but they made a special app for the iPad.
I haven't seen this.
I have a weather station in my backyard that's on Weather Underground, so I can call it up and it shows me all sorts of charts and graphs, including the current temperature there. That's great. But you don't need to have your own weather station because chances are somebody fairly near you has a weather station, and you can just use that. You add it to your favorites.
So you get really local,
and it's hyper-local. And for those of us here in the Bay Area, that's especially relevant because my local forecast on something like weather.com is completely off. Yeah. They have no idea.
We have something like 17 microclimates in the Bay Area. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, so whether I live in Mill Valley, so Sausalito temperatures will be 10 degrees too cold maybe. San Rafael temperatures will be 10 degrees too hot. But the one that's in my backyard is exactly right. So one of the nice things about it.
You don't have to have one.
You don't have to have one because it's got a little map and it'll let you choose. So if I go and I tap on the map, it'll say, well, here are all the stations around me.
Looks like your dinosaur is participating.
I want to eat the Bay Area. Rawr. Anyway, I will move over here. Back off, dinosaur. Back off. Back off.
And by the way, the Weather Underground forecasts I've found are the best of all of them.
They're pretty good. They're pretty good.
Really love them.
And they've got all these. So here's the thing. I went to visit my mother in Arizona, and there was a weather station about less than a quarter of a mile away.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
It's 106 degrees where my mom lives. And visited my sister-in-law up in the foothills, and there's a place about 2 miles from where she lives. There's a weather station.
Perfect.
So it's 92 in the foothills. It's 106 in Phoenix. And it's 80 degrees in Mill Valley. So yeah, it's fun.
Summertime.
All of these charts pop out. You can do like month and year
look at this.
charts like that. The map pops out. There's extra data.
Nice.
You can add new items, as many widgets as you want per weather station. Pretty great. So
how much is it?
I believe is it free? I don't know. I'm a failure at that.
But of course, if you want to buy a weather station, that would cost you.
Weather stations are pricey. Weather stations will be a couple $100 at least, starting with a basic sort of net Atmo or something like that.
So it's not a Weather Underground specific.
No, all weather stations basically these days will contact Weather Underground and upload their information. So it's pretty good.
See?
It's good enough to eat.
As Vince says in our chat room, too bad the dinosaurs didn't pay closer attention to the weather. I've often wondered why we care so much about the weather. We really do. And that probably goes back to our agrarian roots where, bad weather meant you wouldn't be eaten in the winter, because it doesn't matter anymore. We go inside. but we care. People watch the Weather Channel.
I've got a little widget on my Mac that tells me not just the temperature outside, but how different it is from the same time the previous day, which is actually kind of great because I can look at that and say, oh, it's going to be a lot warmer today, and maybe I'll step outside and actually.
You don't really care. It's just we like data.
Oh no, it's completely entertaining.
It's entertaining.
But it is occasionally when we're going to go take a walk, I'll say, oh, it's going to be 10 degrees cooler today. Everybody bring a jacket.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. You like my mom. She always would say that too. All right, you know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the game of the century, folks. Pokemon Go. Now, it's really for an iPhone or an Android phone, and it is only for the U.S., Australia, and New Zealand. I'm sorry if you're living in some other country. Although I understand, thank you, iMore, that you can put APKs on if you're an Android user and you're in another country, and it will work. But the servers have been just blasted. This app came out on Wednesday, July 6th, and it is, this is bigger than Flappy Bird, it feels like.
I agree.
I can't think of another app that has been so popular in a long, long time. Pokemon Go. Now, this comes from the company called Niantic. They created, so the founders of Niantic, and this is the interface, I'll show you a little bit. We're going to give you a little primer how to play this game. The founders of Niantic actually came to Niantic from a company called Keyhole. Keyhole was a satellite mapping company. They did the satellite imagery. Google bought them, and that's the satellite imagery in Google Maps.
And Google Earth.
And Google Earth. And the Keyhole folks, I think, must have said to Google, that's all nice, but we have this idea. We want to make some apps based on this data. So first they did Field Trip, which I don't think was available on iOS, but it was kind of an interesting app. As you'd walk through a town, it would tell you when you walk by a point of interest. It would actually speak to you. Oh, on the left, that building was used for The Godfather 3. That's where the big shootout happened. And it was kind of fun. You would go, but it was also extremely annoying. And it didn't, I think it's still around, but it didn't really take off. Then they did Ingress, which was a cult game that involved you walking around in your town or wherever you were, looking for, it was generally points of interest, and they would be hackable. You would do this, first you join a faction, and then you do this hacking stuff, and you take it over, and then the other faction would try to take it back. And I always thought it was, first of all, it was kind of opaque, difficult to use, and weird. People who got into it, like Father Robert, walked miles doing this because they got so obsessed with it. The other thing that worried me a little bit, you're standing in front of like the U.S. Post Office, and it's saying hacking the U.S. Post Office, and you'd be doing your hacking, and it looked like, frankly, you're going to get taken down if you keep doing that. So I didn't do it. I got tired of it, and I didn't do it. Well, back to the drawing board. They've done a partnership with the Pokemon Company, which makes, if you've never heard of it, and I don't know how you could not have, made the game of the 90s, or maybe it was the early 2000s. I think my kids was about 9 or 10. And it was a card game, and you would have different Pokemon creatures, hundreds of them. They all had different attributes. You could evolve them, power them up. You'd buy the cards and get the creature. And I remember we had to stop at 7-Eleven. Every time Henry saw 7-Eleven, he said, I need a card pack. And if you were lucky, you'd get a foil card that would have extra features. It was a fun game, kind of like Magic the Gathering, or lots of card games like this. Then there were Pokemon games you could play on various video gaming systems. So they did a tie-in, basically taking Ingress, modifying it to be more like Pokemon, but it's essentially the same mechanics as Ingress. You walk a lot. The more you walk, the more Pokemon you're going to see. You capture the Pokemon you see. You train them up. Here's the video. You train them up, and then you can do a few things. When you get home in the leisure of your own home, you can take your Pokemon and evolve them. You can hatch more. And you can then go to a Pokemon gym, try to take it over, much the same way Ingress you would be taking over points of interest. Because it's mapping, it's got real maps and real points of interest. There it is, that's a Pokemon gym. He's going to have a Pokemon battle with whoever took over the gym previously, and if he's lucky, defeat them, and his team, whether it's red, blue, or yellow, will become the default team. So let me show you a little bit. Now, one thing you probably will see a lot of, and it's been really bad this last few days, is this. That means it can't reach the servers. So many people are playing this game that the servers are down a lot. One thing that sometimes helps, and I'll try this, is force closing the app and restarting it. You'll be using either a login with Pokemon, and they actually had to slow down Pokemon signups because so many people were signing up, or your Google account. Now, one of the advantages of doing that is you can use this on your iPhone, on your iPad, your Android device, and it's the same account. See, I'm Chief Twit. I keep everything. I keep all the things in my backpack. So that's nice. You know, but the disadvantage is that's you. That's it. And you don't get to change your name. You don't get to change your look. Sometimes I wish I could. That's it. And what you've got, you've got. But that's all right. At least you get to take it with you. Now, I mentioned iPad. I don't know, but my guess would be that you cannot play this on an iPad that doesn't have LTE because you need the GPS to know where you are. You can see we are actually, this is the Twit Brick House. You can see it can tell I'm in it. Across the street from us is a point of interest. In this case, and again, the servers are down, so let's see if we can get this. In this case, it's a mural on the wall across the street. There it is, the Phoenix Theorem mural. If I spin it, I can get a few items from it, usually Pokeballs, but sometimes some more premium items. And I just got 4 Pokeballs, but that's good. You need them because if any Pokemon show up, you're going to need those Pokemons to capture them. Now, you could tell if there are any Pokemons nearby with this bar down here. This shows what Pokemons are the nearest. With one paw print, they're almost in your vicinity. They may not be visible yet. If they're visible, the paw print will disappear entirely. 3 means they're as far away as they can be, but still be on your radar. I'm not sure what it means when I do that, except that maybe I'm keeping an eye peeled. So as I get closer, those paw prints will go down. There's a few other things you can do. If you hit your Pokeball, you'll see these are Pokemon I've collected over time. And you can sort these if you press CP in a variety of ways. The most useful are combat power. The more power, of course, the more likely you're going to win in one of those battles in a Pokemon gym. But another useful way is to sort it alphabetically. That's when you'll see you have duplicates. You do want to get rid of duplicates. You don't need but one of anything. And one of the reasons of course you could keep duplicates, but one of the reasons you might want to get rid of the lowest combat point duplicate is because you can trade it in for 1 bit of candy. So I'm going to transfer this Duo to the professor. No takesies, backsies. It's gone forever once you do. But I got a Duo candy, and here's why you might want that. You use the candy to power up and evolve. I'm not yet to the point where I can evolve it. I need 50 candies to evolve it. My recommendation is not to power up until you've fully evolved. As you evolve the character, it changes into a different character. So it's a good idea to read the Pokédex to see, these are all Pokemon I've seen or captured, and to see what they evolve into. One of the most highly valued is Pikachu. It can evolve into a variety of things, so it doesn't tell you what it's going to evolve into. But here's the Raticate. It was an evolution from a Rattata. So the idea was I traded in all the Rattatas, kept one. Once I got enough Rattata candy, and each species has its own candy, I could evolve to Raticate. Raticate is the top, by the way. So what I could do now, if I have any extra candy, is power my Raticate up. Let's see if I have any extra candy to do that with. Where's my... Oh, and I have an extra Rattata, so let's trade off the Rattata. Let's get rid of him. Don't need him anymore. And get some extra Rattata candy. Oh, here's another one I can trade off. Let's get rid of all of these. So you'll capture a lot of duplicates, so it's a good idea. Yep. Now, I go to my Raticate. I've got 25 points of Rattata candy, so I can power him up. And you'll see he gets 20 extra combat points. The more points, the more likely you'll win. But there's other strategy involved. There are different types of skills. If you're going to combat, you want to pick a Pokemon that's likely to win against the Pokemon you're playing. Eventually, I'll get rid of all these Zubats. It's a lot of fun. I wish I could show you the mechanics, but so you have to wait until a Pokemon shows up. There's one way you can kind of encourage, a couple of ways you can kind of encourage Pokemon to show up. You get items, potions, and revive will heal Pokemons. Incense will attract Pokemons. So if I place this incense here right now, it's incense around me, and I get it for 30 minutes, and I can continue to move around. No one else will see the value of this, but this will attract Pokemon for me. There's another way. There we go. See, I got something. It looks like a Rattata. Let's tap him, and yeah, wild Rattata. Now, this is kind of the fun part. This is the augmented reality. You can see I'm actually seeing him. The camera is turned on the iPad, and I'm seeing him kind of as if he were really here. It's, as Robert Scoble has pointed out on our last show, not exactly augmented reality, because I can move around and the Rattata goes with me. He's not actually in the space. Now let's try to capture him. Notice as I hold the Pokeball, that target narrows. Now, it's my understanding that it, he got closer and he bit me. We're not detecting, see, this is a problem with 10. You also have a problem with, you can play this out of AR mode, by the way. It's just not as much fun. I'm gonna throw it, boink. That was an easy one because it was really close by. Sometimes they escape, but I think I've caught him Ghostbusters style in my Pokeball. Oh, he escaped!
No.
Oh, that Rattata. Oh, he not only escaped, he went away. I lost the chance to capture him. That's enough on that. When you get to level 5, you're not there yet. You'll have to choose a faction. Red, blue, or green, or yellow, I mean. And I am, just a hint, Team Valor, which is red. You want to go the same color as your friends. That way you can gang up and take over gyms. Was that more information than anybody really wanted to know about Pokemon Go?
Well, now you know. Everybody's going to be asking you, hey, tell me what's the story about this Pokemon game? And now you don't even need to have played it. You just need to have heard Leo explain it.
Yeah. There's a lot more to it. And what's interesting, and it bothers a lot of people, there's no rules published. You have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Of course, imore.com immediately assigned Serenity Caldwell. She's written 20 articles.
Yep.
So you could probably find out a lot more by going to imore.com and reading her
For sure.
articles. You're playing the game?
Yeah, a little bit. My family is, for sure. They took a walk. My son, who never once, we say, oh, let's go for a hike, and he's like, oh, it's terrible. He was very enthusiastic.
That's what I like about it. Same thing with my son, who will do anything to not exercise. He likes to sit at his computer, play video games.
Yep.
He was saying, hey, can we go downtown? Because I understand somebody's put an what do you call it, a module to attract Pokemon, a lure on the post office, and we need to all go down there. And so it's fun. You walk around. And the other thing that I think is really important, and I think the timing of this is interesting. I don't know if they planned it this way, but it came at a time, kind of a dark time in our country. People were a little down, a little sad, didn't really want to go out in the streets, were afraid. Brought us out of our houses and out of our shells. I noticed a lot more people talking. And I don't know, certainly in Petaluma, which is a small town, you walk around, you see people everywhere playing this game, and it's a great conversation starter. You go, Pokemon Go, Team Red, Team Blue, oh, you, I oughta. And it's fun, and you get to talk to people, and it has really been, I hope this is more than just a fad. I hope this survives, because I think it's a really valuable. Okay, I'll try one more time just to catch this Rattata. He's appeared again. Oh, did I get him? Let's see if he escapes this time, that darn rat. I don't really need another Rattata, but you see the servers going down? That's because so many people are signing up, even as I speak. Mm-hmm. And this is one bug. Because the server went down, that's going to sit there forever.
We're just going to be stalled right there.
Yep, we're stalled. And that is not iOS 10. I'm on iOS 9. It's just a bug. And the only way I know of getting out of this is force closing.
Yeah. The success of this app shows you, too, that having the most refined, high-quality, bug-free game experience is not required to become a massive hit, because it's buggy and it uses a lot of battery, but it doesn't matter. It's a huge hit.
Yeah, and I imagine that the folks at Niantic are wishing to heck that the servers would stay up, because that has to be a little bit of a gating factor in adoption. You tired of that hat?
Yeah.
Well, we should probably wrap it up.
I'm going to cradle it now, like Johnny Plato.
Hey, it's been great having you. Thank you, Jason Snell.
Thank you, Leo.
Really appreciate it.
It's great to be here.
6colors.com,
Yeah,
theincomparable.com. Follow Jason on Twitter and on Instagram and everywhere he is, because he does great stuff. He's a wonderful guy, and we'll have you back soon.
Great.
A regular. He's just down the road, so we like to get him up here for MacBreak Week. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Megan will be back next week. We do MacBreak Week. I'm sorry, iOS Today Yeah, I do a few shows. It's sometimes confusing. Every Monday, around about 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern Time, 20:30 UTC. We'd love it if you come watch us live and join us in the chat room at irc.twit.tv. But if you can't, don't worry. On-demand audio and video is always available. After the fact on twit.tv/iOS, or just use your favorite podcast application and subscribe. That way you'll get every single episode. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on iOS Today. Now toss your hat to the crowd.